All right, the 2022 NFL Draft has concluded, which means we are back here at Bears Nation Podcast on YouTube with Bears Nation Podcast Breakdown with myself, Kevin Lapka, alongside, you know him, Kellyn Gerenstein. He was here last year. You guys love the breakdowns we did last year on Darnell Mooney and, of course, Justin Fields. Well, we're back because I know you guys want to know who the heck Kyler Gordon is, what he brings to the Chicago Bears. We're going to address that right now. We are going to do a Kyler Gordon breakdown. Look, it was a cornerback. It wasn't a receiver. There's Bears fans who are unhappy. Through this breakdown, I think we're going to tell them, Kellyn, they should be pretty happy they let themselves a player like Kyler Gordon in the second round.
They'll be just fine with Kyler Gordon. They'll be just fine with a guy like him.
They will be just fine. I mean, we're talking about a physical, athletic cornerback. So let's bring up the first clip, Kellyn. We're going to go through about 4 clips here. We're going to break them down, see what we like out of Kyler Gordon, see what he brings to this Matt Eberflus defense. First one here, we have Washington versus Michigan at Michigan. Again, Kyler Gordon played at Washington, came out, ran a 4.52 40-yard dash. Some of the measurables on him, as far as size, he's 5'11 and a half, and he's 194. But let's dive right into the tape, Kellyn. Let's look at this play right here.
Absolutely, 100%. And just before we get into it, let's remember Washington is known for turning out DBs, if nothing else. Obviously, Trent McDuffie was their guy this year who went to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then they've got guys like Budda Baker and Byron Murphy and Kevin King, who we love to pick on, but those guys have all been high draft picks. Marcus Peters was another guy. But hopefully this video isn't too choppy, but we've got Kyler Gordon down here on the boundary numbers. And this is, of course, their first big game after they lost to Montana. And Washington's defensive backfield is stacked, in my opinion. And their defense is the strength of their football team, but their front seven just couldn't get it done. So there's a lot of pressure on these guys. And Kyler Gordon isn't the prospect that Trent McDuffie was, but in my opinion, Trent McDuffie was a top 10 level prospect and a corner who probably should have went a little higher than where he got drafted. But when we look at Kyler Gordon, we're looking at a guy who has insane movement skills, everywhere he can go, he's got freaky athleticism. He's going back, forward, side to side, up and down. The guy has an insane vert. I'm going to let the clip play a few times before I get into it. But just a guy that makes it hard on the quarterback. And as a DB, that's all you can do, because sometimes you're in perfect position and the play isn't there. What you have to do is force the other guy on the other team, the quarterback, to be perfect. And I think Kyler Gordon does a good job of that. And there's still a lot of room to grow. So we see him here in what we call soft press coverage, right? Because he's not going to get his hands on him right away. He's going to let him, not let him stack him, but he's going to let him get outside. And Kyler Gordon is just going to hand fight with him all the way up and down the field. And that's legal. All right. We're looking at, this isn't pass interference. This isn't, Kyler Gordon being cheap. This is legal. We're hand fighting up and down the field. And if this ball is going to be perfect, it's going to be just over this outside shoulder. And that's not a perfect ball, obviously. We're looking at Kyler Gordon make the play. And you want to see your DB, obviously, be that feisty football player getting up and down the field. But again, just a guy that moves very, very well. That's all I can say about him. Now, the 40-yard dash time is a little underwhelming. And I think that's why we saw him go a lot of first round mock drafts, but then when the draft day came, we're looking at him go, early second round. Because when he ran, I think it was either high 4.4s, low 4.5s. It wasn't very impressive, and you thought he was going to be a little bit better than that. But you get to the pro day numbers, I think it was a 6.6, 7, 3 cone, and a 3.96 shuttle. We're looking at extremely impressive, change of direction numbers, and that's what he gives you. But here, this is, again, straight line speed. We're going up against the University of Michigan, which is they got athletes. AJ Henning is one of the fastest players in the country. And then we're going up against, players like Ronnie Bell and just other athletes from the University of Michigan. So, and Washington wasn't tested very much outside of this. You're not going to see them go against a lot of NFL talent. The receiver Drake London ended up getting hurt by the time they played USC this season. So, and last season in 2020, they didn't get to face USC because of COVID. But again, just a guy, I keep saying that, but a guy that's really going to give you his all when it comes to running down the field and making it hard on the offensive player. As far as the quarterback putting that ball in perfect position, and as far as the receiver, you're really going to have to break Kyler Gordon down. You're really going to have to take your time and set it up, because he's going to be able to respond. He's going to be able to react. He's going to be able to recover. So everything is going to have to be perfect timing when he's in his zone, when he's doing everything right.
I like what you're talking about when you talk about his movement, his flexibility, and there's a difference. People sometimes don't understand as you watch the beginning of the clip right here. There's a difference between straight line speed and athleticism and hip mobility and quickness, and that's why they do the 3-cone drills versus just a 40-yard dash. Because people can run in a line straight, but not everyone can move the way he moves in the beginning. You see both on display in this play. You watch the hip movement right there. The hip movement here to catch up. I mean, there's a lot of cornerbacks who get left in the dust from the jump, not because they're not fast enough to catch up with a receiver, but because right from the jump, the receiver makes a good move. Their hip mobility isn't good enough to catch up from the start. And then regardless of even if they're the same speed, the guy's just going to outrun him because he gets the release from the start. So that's what, a lot of things you see about Kyler Gordon is, is he an athlete? Yeah. Well, what does that mean when you talk about athleticism? Because people say, a 4.3 means he's athletic, right? People think the indication for athleticism comes straightly from the vertical jump, the broad jump, and the 40-yard dash. And those are measurables, but you also have to look at, the hip mobility here. Reaction time is something to take in consideration. That's why they do these drills. So I really like here is, from the jump, boom, let's get those hips turned immediately and let's follow this receiver all the way down the field. So you're 100% right about that that mobility and that athleticism that goes beyond straight line speed.
Yeah, and he gets stuck here too. He's kind of locked out after this first little hop, and that's something that he's going to get coached on too. But you still see the ability to explode out of that, right? Boom. Look how that right hip is getting open. That's a perfect point. I mean, he's taking one step. Look how his body is. He's already going this way, right? He's already going to the direction of where he's supposed to be going. But not a lot of guys can open and get moving that fast. So that's the main thing with Kyler Gordon is open, react, and get to where you need to be. That's what he's going to do for you.
Absolutely. So let's bring up the next play. But as you talk about, what he brings and why Matt Eberflus wanted to draft a guy like this, because of course there was questions. Should they draft George Pickens? Should they draft different players? Kyler Gordon was there. And what we saw in that play, and what I think you're going to see in a lot of these plays is what does he provide for you? Explosiveness. That's what Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles want on their team. They want a team full of explosive players. And he exhibits it again in this play. This time, we're going to see his tackling on display again at Michigan, but this is his ability. You always want to see a cornerback who can tackle, especially for the Bears who had severe tackling issues in the secondary last year. I think the Bears want to find themselves a tackler. Let's see what he does here on this play.
Yes, sir. So we're looking at Kyler Gordon here down at the edge. And Michigan is in their jumbo set. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the country. Won the award for the best offensive line in the country. Just got guys that can block. And Hassan Haskins was a high-level running back, got drafted this year. And look at Kyler Gordon here. I'll let it play first.
Incredible
before
play.
I speak. Yeah, just flexibility and able to take that block on. I mean, he got hit, right? He didn't completely dip under. This is a guy, this is a guard. Obviously, they're running power and they're kicking out. This isn't power, actually, because they don't have someone who's kicking out from the front side. So this guy is meant to kick out. This is more of a counter, really, because your guard is kicking out, and this guy's going to lead through this fullback here. And let's think about when we talk about a guard kicking out a corner, how often is that corner going to make the play? Trent Williams said, he's like, when I'm in open space, I'm really making sure my hips are forward, or I'm trying to get that corner to either make a business decision or get the hell out of the way, which are, essentially the same thing. Now, if you're going to stay in Trent Williams' way, that's a rough thing to do. But Kyler Gordon here with this offensive guard here from Michigan, dips underneath, recovers, makes the tackle on the goal line against Hassan Haskins, who was a pretty strong running back, a guy that is known to break tackles. And it's all flexibility. It's all Kyler Gordon being able to take that on. Got a little baseball slide going on there, puts the right foot in the ground, gets underneath the block, takes it on, and just makes the tackle. Kyler Gordon's physicality is pretty underrated when we talk about him as a corner. He actually played a little bit of nickel toward the end of the season because Brendan Riley-Hiles, who was their main nickel, they were kind of shifting him between safety and that slot corner spot. Gordon played nickel, and in this defense, the nickels have run fits on the outside. So there's a couple plays of him on tape, not just on the goal line, but everywhere on the field, him filling run gaps and him making one-on-one tackles in space against running backs and one-on-one tackles in space against receivers. And tackling is hard in football now because the guys with the ball in their hand are insane athletes. They're strong, they're big, they're fast, and they make people miss. They're very quick in and out. And Kyler Gordon's a guy that can limit some of that because he can, if he's not going to make the tackle, he's at least going to slow a guy up for the rest of his guys to get there. And sometimes as a cornerback, that's all you can do because we've got athletes like you saw highlights of Trayvon Walker. Not saying that the Bears got Trayvon Walker, get Dominique Robinson, who I can't wait to break down at a later date. But a guy like that and guys on your team that can chase the football down, you want guys that can be physical, and that's what Kyler Gordon brings to you, as you see here on the goal line.
Absolutely. And you know, you kind of see him slow. Like this is actually a full solo tackle by Kyler Gordon. I mean, a lot of times you'll see a cornerback kind of wrap him up by the legs and let the linebacker finish him off. And that's what will happen a lot in the NFL. But you talk about explosiveness and athleticism. I would tell you 90%, if not more, of cornerbacks fall to the ground after a hit like that from the guard. They just fall, they'll fall over. And that could be because they don't have the same flexibility, athleticism, and explosiveness as Kyler Gordon, or they don't have the same effort. I mean, this is a pure effort play, man. Effort play, I mean, you get hit from a 300-pound, offensive guard there who's pulling across with a lot of speed to get back up and get after a faster, running back who's notorious for breaking tackles and pulling him down. I mean, this is a full-on effort play. It's just, I mean, I remember watching this and I just couldn't, even every time I watch it now, I cannot believe he does not just fall over to the ground. I mean, this is exactly what you mean when you talk about athleticism and explosiveness. Explosiveness isn't just how fast can you get to point A to B from an acceleration standpoint. It's, okay, you get knocked down, boom, how fast can you get up from getting knocked down? That is what explosiveness is. I mean, it is a prime example of his athleticism. And you're right. I mean, the tackling ability here to, you're making a form tackle, bringing him down by the ankles, getting him down to the ground. You're not gonna be able to get him up high. It's a freaking really good play, man. I mean, it just shows all of his talents from a tackling standpoint and from because was he blitzing on this play or was he just I can't remember.
I mean, he's probably
he's just
on the edge. Going for the run and ends up making the play.
So
it's just, again, like you said, it's a great play. And of course, me and Kevin are Bears fans, right? So we're going to try and break down the good stuff with Kyler Gordon. There's things that he needs to work on. There's a ceiling to be reached, which means he's not perfect yet. But these are some of the things that we're trying to show you that you can expect from a guy like Kyler Gordon. And for the rest of the prospects that the Bears drafted, who we're going to break down, these are what these guys are going to bring to the table. I'm not saying Kyler Gordon, and neither is Kevin, saying Kyler Gordon's going to get 12 interceptions, have an insane amount of tackles for loss, but these are the things he's going to bring. And when you look for a guy who's explosive like that, that's why the Bears are bringing him on board. That's why we selected him at 39. So when you ask, why didn't we take George Pickens or Sky Moore or Calvin Austin, whoever, Justin Ross, who we like and is still going through the UDFA process as of right now. When you ask why we didn't draft those guys, Kyler Gordon, we need a guy like that. We need a guy who brings that physicality. And there's still questions, in the secondary. Now, if Thomas Graham becomes the guy that we want him to be, you have the flexibility to move Kyler Gordon from inside and outside. And
he can play both.
Exactly. He can play both. He might not travel because Jalen Johnson will still be the number one. But Kyler Gordon can be a guy that can move with those. We're seeing receivers that can play inside, outside. We're seeing big slots. We're seeing guys like Traylon Burks, Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, these guys that can play anywhere, any X, Y, Z, name any letter in any alphabet that these guys can play. Kyler Gordon is going to be able to follow it. And actually, I got a clip of him next that I'll show where he is covering a tight end from Stanford. See if I can pull it up as fast as I can.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's not that we project that he can play both those positions at the pro level. It's that he did it at Washington. Like he has done it in the past. He has the ability to do it. So it's always nice to see that the player has done it in the past instead of, they have the projection to be that, but we don't really know. But let's see this play here against the tight end at Stanford.
Yep. So Kyler Gordon is going to press here. And Stanford is in this bunch set. So they've got two tight ends over here. And then this guy could be labeled as a running back or receiver. Doesn't matter. But this is Kyler Gordon here in press coverage. And we're just going to see him play ball-to-ball physicality with this tight end. And this is, again, just look at it. I'll just let it play. I'll let it play. Because I'm not going to feel like I talk a lot about these Bears prospects. Sometimes you just got to watch the tape and just let your eyes tell you what they want to see. But, again, fluid hips, right? We're seeing right out of the gate Kyler Gordon point his hips to where he's got to be, right? His feet, his hips, his chest is aligned. Now let's look at the stance too, right? We see this from Kyer Elam, who was another corner drafted this year, who had one of my favorite cornerback stances. It's this kind of chest over toes, bent back, because that's really what you want, right? You want your chest, your knees, and your toes kind of in a straight line. You never want to you don't want to be too far forward, but obviously you're never going to want to be too far back. And Kyler Gordon's just going to play the ball too as well, knock it away. It just seemed too easy for him right there, didn't it? Just seemed a little bit not challenging enough. But this is another Kyler Gordon is not a guy that uses his hands a ton
Mm-hmm.
at the college level, because just him and Trent McDuffie, both McDuffie's got shorter arms, so you're not going to rely on those too much. But guys that rely on their athleticism, and you want to see that hand usage more in the NFL. And Kyler Gordon's probably going to play a little bit more off coverage and a little bit more of soft press more so than this. But if he does end up lining up against a tight end, right, and that's a mismatch because Kyler Gordon is going to be smaller than a lot of tight ends in the NFL. But for those guys who can split out, take like a Robert Tonyan, a guy who we're going to see 2 times a year. If he's still on the Packers, right? Is he still there?
Mm-hmm.
I know he's recovering from injury. So, take a guy like that. Guys who can flex out and do a bunch of things. You're going to need a guy that can do that, because you want Roquan Smith to roam. You want a guy like that to be able to play in the middle, whether he's spying, whether he's dropping into a hook curl, whether he's taking a running back out of the backfield. You really don't want to rely on him in one-on-one coverage with a tight end. Now you got a guy who can do that, especially now that the NFL is going toward base nickel so
Mm-hmm.
much. You want to leave 2 linebackers in the middle to fill and to fit. So I think he's going to fit a scheme, any scheme, perfectly. We're going nickel, 2 high quarter, 2 high quarter system, and I just think he fits perfectly because he's going to be a guy that we just saw that'll be able to run fit and be able to match up with tight ends, match up with slot receivers and outside receivers. He's a super, super versatile weapon on the defense, and we got another super versatile weapon in Jaquan Brisker who can do kind of the same sort of stuff. We'll probably move more toward your split field safety and nickel versus Kyler Gordon, who will go from nickel to outside corner. But you got 2 super versatile guys, and again, we'll get to a lot of these guys eventually. But I'm super excited. I think the Bears offense might not be super fun to watch, and it might be rough for us, but I think the secondary will be fun, and what they say, turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole reason why, and we said it this on the broadcast, which we had a lot of fun with on draft day. Turnovers. It's what made 2006 the team great. It's what made the 2008 team great. It's probably what made 85 great, even though I don't have the stats, but I guarantee you it's what made them great. Turn the damn ball over and you're going to win a lot of football games.
Exactly. I mean, we have gotten into the era where we fall in love with offensive prowess and the appeal of watching that. But, to bring back up 2018, that offense wasn't that great. But it was it was the most fun year in the past 20 years, likely, for Bears fans, because takeaways were happening. That's how you energize a fan. You want to talk about, the energy and how energy dictates a game. A team can score a touchdown back to, like, the Bears can score a touchdown, and then right after the Lions can score a touchdown. Like, the momentum of scoring a touchdown can go away quickly, but the momentum of a turnover, like, that's just different, man. And that's why, they brought in Eberflus in the first place, and now they're collecting players who fit that mold, which is different from players from the past regime. They were reaching for positions of need instead of getting guys that just fit their system, when they can get them. We saw the trade backs this year instead of the trade ups. So Kyler Gordon fits exactly what they want to do. He's going to be a ball hawk, and it's going to be fun to watch. Let's go to our last clip, though. And one thing about that last clip, so you talk about, well, he doesn't use his hands too much. Don't get that mistaken for the fact that he's an aggressive cornerback, though. Like, he is aggressive. He is going to play feisty. Just because he's not putting his hands on the receiver and pushing him away doesn't mean he's going to, play bigger than his strength, per se.
Absolutely. Just because you're not a down press corner like a J.C. Horn, just because you're not like that doesn't mean that you're not physical. We see a lot of physical corner. Jalen Ramsey is not a guy that presses, but you're not going to say Jalen Ramsey isn't a physical corner, So not saying that Kyler Gordon is that, but just to get onto this last clip, this is Kyler Gordon here, and this is where I think he's going to be doing a lot of what he does. For the Bears, he's going to be playing a lot of off man, a lot of catch man. What you'll see here. So you see this technique is called catch man, right? So Kyler Gordon's not moving back. He's already in the red zone. He doesn't have a lot of help. So he's got to keep everything in front of him, right? Nothing behind him, but keep everything in front of you because you got the athleticism to make the play, which is exactly what he does here against this out route. Now, this is a bad throw again, but Kyler Gordon is there in position on this throw if it's where it needs to be. He's making the play, and there's plenty of plays on tape where Kyler Gordon is making catches or is making tackles after the catch. There's a play where he strips a tight end against Colorado in the red zone, forces a turnover after the catch. There's a lot of good stuff with Kyler Gordon in this technique with catch man, off man. And it's not teach tape, I'd say, just because I couldn't speak to cornerback technique like I could QB technique. Like last year when we were breaking down Justin Field, I could tell you, like, this base, this motion, that's what, if I'm teaching someone how to throw a football, if I'm putting tape on, this is what I'm showing them. I couldn't say that for sure with Kyler Gordon, but this is damn good catch man technique. And he's a physical guy too. He could have let him play right into his arms. He could have let him play right into the ball, so multiple techniques. We've seen him play press man. We've seen him play soft press. Now we're seeing him play catch man. And I do have one more clip
Okay.
of him making an interception, but kind of in a similar mold of this play, but just shows you the athleticism, right? Look at the burst right out of the gate, right? That's
Boom.
just
Yeah, that
pure
burst is
athleticism.
there.
That's the change of direction, right?
Right.
And like we said, he's not a guy that's going to run down the field with these 4-3 wide receivers, but you don't need to. He's not going to have to do that too often. You're not going to ask him to do that too often, which is why I think this off man, and this is where he's going to find his home in the NFL, playing like this. And it depends on how Eberflus wants to play it. When you watch the Colts last year, they gave a multitude of looks. They played cover zero press, which they're going to do this year. They played, straight up quarters. They mix it up. The NFL coaches are too good. You don't see the same look on every play. You don't see the same coverage every play. It doesn't matter what their base is. They mix it up a ton. And Kyler Gordon's going to be able to do almost everything that Matt Eberflus is going to ask him to do. Because, again, we talked about how he can play nickel. We talked about how he can play outside. We talked about how he can fill the run. We saw him play press man. Now we're seeing him play off man.
Right. And the way he got to the football there, who that kind of reminded me of in 2018 was Kyle Fuller, right? Like the way Kyle Fuller got back to the ball, like he was really, really good at that.
I'll show you this next clip.
Yeah, I see a little bit of Kyle Fuller in him. And Kyle Fuller's had a really weird career, but I remember I remember so many times on plays like that where he's a little bit off coverage and he needs to get back to the ball. That burst was there. He got back to the ball and got in front of the receiver for an interception. He did that so many times.
Yep. And this is the last one we'll show for Kyler Gordon, but so you see him already playing inside leverage, right? So with inside leverage as a receiver, if you have to get to the outside, this guy's going to be able to undercut it. So you have to threaten him back, get his movement going toward this way where my mouse is going. And that's what this receiver does a good job. Stem inside, attack Kyler Gordon's inside. Now this route isn't the greatest at the top, and it's why Kyler Gordon is able to read it so perfectly. But this is catch man, right? We don't see Kyler going backwards. We see him going laterally, right? He's doing a good job. Right. Moving his feet, staying square, keeping his hips square the whole time. His eyes are never off the receiver. Hips don't lie, man. One time I saw a tweet, Shakira. Cornerbacks, hips don't lie. That's exactly what it means, right? And you see Kyler Gordon here, makes the interception. That's Kyle Fuller. I'm super glad you brought that up, right? And then obviously the team is hyped. Love that. I love when you see guys feed off the energy of a player you drafted, because that's how it's supposed to be. That's how defense is supposed to be played. And this is just a way to play corner, because it's so hard to press now. And some guys make it look super easy in college. J.C. Horn, another guy that did that. Kyer Elam, another guy that did that. Trent McDuffie did it. Sauce Gardner, obviously one of the best press man corners I've ever seen at the college level. But it's very hard to switch it up, because you're going to lose playing press a lot in the NFL, just because there's receivers that look at the guys playing the game. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins is exiting his prime, I would say, but prime Nuke was. You couldn't press that guy. You're going to lose every damn time. So you got to be able to play multiple techniques. You got to be able to read and react and trust your instincts as a corner, because again, you're going to lose. You're going to get beat. You're going to get double moved. You can't stop. Sometimes you can't stop it. You just have to lose. You have to live with losing as a corner. It's a very next play mentality type of position. It's just like quarterback. You got to be able to move on to the next play. But here, you don't have to, because we'll live with this one. We'll live with an interception.
Oh, yeah. All these clips, man, they encompass what he brings to the table here. But, most notably that hip mobility, that overall athleticism, which, you said, what was his RAS score? He was like 9th out of,
9.69 out of 10, which is this is like a 0.00 to 10 scale. It ranked 63 out of 2001 cornerbacks, going all the way back to 1987. So that's pretty good, I would say.
That's pretty good.
RAS is relative athletic score. For people who don't know, you can just Google Kyler Gordon RAS and you'll see the tweets for it. 63 out of 2001 corners, which that's pretty solid.
Pretty damn solid. So we think the Bears got themselves a good one, and Kyler Gordon in the second round. What Kellyn thought was a first round talent, and after looking at this tape, I don't know how you can disagree with that. It was a weird first round. So they get a good one in round 2. at pick 39. So big key. And, this is a guy who's going to start right away. Don't wait a few years for Kyler Gordon to make an impact. He's going to make an impact this year. You remember the impact that Jalen Johnson made his first year. I think you could see something similar from Kyler Gordon year one. So that'll do it for our first of many breakdowns of the 2022 draft class. We're going to get to Velus Jones Jr. next. We're also going to do Jaquan Brisker. We'll maybe do a few others, but we're going to get you guys covered with these guys. And give our overall evaluations and breakdowns of these players for y'all, since a lot of you guys don't even, weren't expecting guys like this to be picked. You thought we'd be doing breakdowns on George Pickens or John Dotson or Sky Moore. Guess what? There's some names you haven't heard. I know you guys need to figure out who they are. So that'll do it for myself, Kevin, and Kellyn. This has been Bears Nation Podcast Breakdowns. Be looking out for our next video of Velus Jones Jr.